Welcome to the Voices of Boyle and a very special episode for Christmas Day 2023. Today's guest is Mr. Dennis Dodd, a local legend in the pub business here in Boyle. He needs no introduction, and I won't ramble on about what we talk about because everyone's going to listen to it. So I just want to say, put on the kettle, have a cup of tea, and I hope you enjoyed the chat with Dennis. And just before we go, myself and Carla would like to say a big happy Christmas and happy New Year to everyone. And we want to say thank you so much for the support that the podcast has received over the last couple of months. We get messages all the time from people at home and away who love the podcast and love listening to the stories. So our goal is to keep going. And we just want to say thank you and we wish you all the best for 2024.
Yeah, and just one final thing before we get into the episode. Both myself and Florence would like to take the opportunity to thank not only the guests that we've had on this year, but previous guests last year as well, because without your time and effort, we wouldn't have the Voices of Boyle to produce every 2 weeks. So we really do appreciate all the effort and time you've given us. So thank you very, very much.
So today we have a very special guest. We're sitting up here in the Crescent Bar with the man himself, Dennis, who we are delighted to have on. We've had a few requests for you, Dennis, so I'm sure lots of people will be happy to hear your voice.
A good few.
So you're welcome, Dennis. Welcome to the Voices of Boyle.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here. It's a privilege, and being a Boyle man, heart and heart, and I've enjoyed living here, and I've lived all my life here in a sense, and it's been a pleasure to serve people and to be involved in different things down through the years, and it's great to be here. Thanks
Brilliant,
very much.
Dennis.
Thanks for calling.
Brilliant. So exactly that. It wouldn't have been, the Voices of Boyle wouldn't have been complete without having you on, as you said, a Boyle man. A Boyle man through and through. I might get an extra late one for that one night, Dennis, will I? So Dennis, let's take things right back to the very beginning, I suppose. Your dad, Joe Dodd, he was an auctioneer, and himself and your grandfather bought this pub from John H. Cox back in 1948. So that's where Dodd's story began.
It is in a sense, but my grandfather had a grocery shop in Main Street, and the business developed from there. And my dad was one of 6 children, being the second oldest, and they bought the pub in 1948, and we're here since, really. So it's
a long time.
My mum and dad married in 53, and there's 4 of us, and we lived upstairs. It was a joy. Great fun.
So back in 1948 then, Dennis, when your dad bought the pub, how old was he back then? Did he live... Did your grandparents move in above, or was your dad old enough to move in above and run the pub himself? How old was he?
I think he was in his mid-20s at the time. He lived on the premises for a while, and then occasionally he went back down to the Main Street to reside there at times, because he was still single at the time. And once he got married, both my mum, Eileen, and dad lived here, and then the rest of us followed on after that then. And
great.
And was he involved in bull breeding as well? I remember Mum saying something.
It was more of a novelty. He kind of, one of the stories, he came home one day and he told Mum he bought a cow, and she says, "You bought a cow? Why'd you buy the cow?" And he says, "I just wanted to." And she says, "What are you going to do with the cow?" And he says, "I'm going to milk her." He says, "You don't know how to milk her." He says, "I don't, but I learn." But it's all a bit of fun with the gang that were coming in. He did get first prize in the RDS, which was big thing that time, for a yearling bull short turn. And he kind of became within the circle of people. He didn't own any land. I remember going up to Great Meadow, and we collect a couple of cows and we'd bring them down in the evening and bring them back in the evening after being milked in the morning and that. And we used to make them at the back of the pub here.
Oh, right.
And I can still remember being very young. Mum in the back kitchen had a big iron pot, and she had a mixture of everything for feeding them with. And it was actually boiled. She kind of heated it up for them, and I can still remember the smell of that. But it was more of a novelty in a sense. And unfortunately, when Daddy died, that kind of went
with him.
And then was he also an auctioneer?
He was an auctioneer. Yeah. Dad was he was a great character, very funny guy. He just had a great way of delivering, saying the right thing at the right time.
Witty.
Witty, and there was so much wit of people that time. That's just endless stuff, And they're all kind of bouncing off each other.
Yeah, great old crack, Dennis.
He was, and he built up a lot of friends down through the years, and that out between the pub and the auctioneer, and he was well regarded and well liked.
And where was his office, Dennis, for the auctioneers? Was that
just in the pub?
Okay, yeah.
You went to one side.
So you'd a farm out the back, an auctioneer in the middle, and the pub out the front.
Well, a wee quick story about the McGraths who lived just outside town, and the kids of the McGraths are my age now. Their grandfather came in and he says, "I'm thinking of selling." So they sat down to one side, and Con described the farm to him. He said, "Read that back to me." And Dad read it back to him. He says, Joe, that sounds so good. He says, "I don't think I'll bother selling. I'm going to stay put."
Are you serious?
And they're there since. Yeah.
No way.
See, he made it sound so good. He lost a customer.
That's great.
Brilliant. And they're there since. Brilliant. And then Dennis, obviously Joe met Eileen.
Yeah.
And they moved in above then, and they lived above the pub.
They did. My mum was originally from Nina, and she moved to town when she was 6 years old, and her mum had died. And the circumstances at that time that she had two sisters and a brother. They were parted off to other people. So she came to town to live in Boyle, and she, from 6 years old until she was 87, I think, she lived in Boyle all her life. So she was wonderful, and she was fantastic in a sense that her dad died a young man, and we were very young. She kept things going in her own nice way, and I remember great nights here, that with people, and she passed on there a few years ago. We have a lot to be thankful to her, really. She was, in her own way, a strong, undermined woman, but
hard working,
determined in her life. She worked very hard.
Yeah,
we're so grateful to her, really.
Yeah. A lot of people actually in town will have memories of your mum. I remember even coming in as a young one, visiting, and you'd be having the lemonade and the potatoes, and she'd always be so welcoming. She was never like, "I'll get the kids out," or any of that crack. She was always so welcoming to everyone. Do you remember her, Carlo?
I do, yeah, I do, definitely. I wouldn't have been eating the crisps though and drinking the lemonade back then. You
were full of chips below. Well, it was a novelty for us to get the crisps. So, Dennis, back then, was it called the Crescent Bar?
Always was, yeah.
Always was. Yeah. And who put the name on it?
I think the first owner was John Hogg Cox.
Yeah.
And that was
his family. I think it remained since then. We didn't see any reason to change it.
And obviously you were reared above the pub, and 3 siblings. You have?
4.
I have 3 siblings.
3 siblings.
Yeah.
So what was it like back in those days, Dennis, living in town, living above the pub?
It's like nearly every business premises, everybody was living in the premises at that time, and unusually for a lot of towns there was 4 pubs, and that time they were all doing just a pub. There was no food. And next door you had the famous Grahams, the Graham sisters, and they're legendary in their own, in music and everything else. Wonderful people. And then there was Paddy and Rita Hever, and then you had Frank and Rita Tarpe, I think. Was it Rita?
Rita was,
it was Rita.
Teresa's mom, yeah.
So it kind of, I suppose when I became a teenager, all pubs were so busy that time, and I got a lovely present recently where the renewal of the licenses in 1936, for the town, and there was 32 licenses renewed that time. And I think there was more previous to that, but since then the reduction of the pubs is drastic in a sense. But there was 32 licenses at that time, you know. And all pubs were busy, and strange enough, there was no real money around, but pubs are busy now. People have money, and
they're not busy.
Quiet.
It's gone the other opposite direction, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever's going to happen, I don't know.
And so you touched there, Dennis, on some of your neighbours. I actually had a chat with Teresa Tarpey. She was on the podcast a while ago, and she was telling me the story about your microwave.
Yeah.
So the Dodds were one of the first in Boyle to get a microwave, and Teresa and the family on a Saturday night, they'd want to watch Match of the Day, but Dennis and the crowd over in Dodds might want a burger. And she said when you had your microwave on, it interfered with their telly. So Teresa used to be sent over to tell you to turn off the microwave during Match of the Day. I just thought that was hilarious.
But that's
the way it was.
That's the way it was.
Yeah.
You know.
And you also, Dennis, had the first colour TV in town, I think.
Had.
Yeah. Now, what year was that? Because I think Teresa in her podcast did mention it was for a World Cup. And Oliver Fallon, who was also on the podcast, said he remembers in Marion Road for the 1970 World Cup. So I'm presuming it was either 66 or 70 when you would have got it.
69.
69. So that would have been then for the 1970 World Cup that she remembers.
We have a lovely photo of Dad where he was switching on the television, and it's kind of one of it's the one photograph we have of him on his own, in a sense, you know. And the World Cup came on in Mexico at that time. It was fantastic, and sure, the lounge was
I'd say
packed.
So, yeah.
It was unreal, even though Mexico had changed at the time and that, but it was great. Fantastic times, you know.
Yeah.
But we were the Tommy Murray organised it for Dad that time, and there was a big high
mast,
and there was near on top of it, and the famous John Jingo Corrigan was the guy who sorted out the aerials on it, and he was a fantastic, wonderful fella, you know. And I can still see Tommy out in the yard, and bit left, bit right, bit higher than that. And eventually they got it, you know, they got the signals right. But man, they're working it some. And then the mast was tied down with kind of steel kind of lines, you know, to the roof and various parts of the other building. And it broke down twice, and
as it does,
different mess and that. And eventually it came down, but we got by for different reasons, but from the storms and that sort of thing. But yeah, it really did something else. And the microwave was something else, because the burgers we used to do at that time, they were in the deep freeze. And after a minute, they were piping hot. They were just ready to go. And all was on it was just onions. But they were tasty. Tasty. Yeah.
And it would have been such a novelty as well for people back in those days, having a burger basically from frozen to cooked within a few minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
But then there was a range of steak and kidney pies, shepherd's pies. There was dinners now that you're getting in the supermarkets now, and they're very similar. All the same thing, your meat and your and your two veg and that, you know, and there was different varieties that time. So.
And I'd say back then, Dennis, it was so futuristic to have something like that. Did you have people come in just to kind of get a look at the telly or the microwave to kind of see what it was
some
like?
People came in especially just for the microwave. In a sense, you know, it was just very busy certainly at the beginning, and then when other businesses opened up around town and became specialised chippers and that, like, I mean, that's the way things went, you know.
Yeah.
But, it was there as a purpose to serve the people, and that's.
And did you do food for people then in the microwave, or was it no? Did you no?
No, it was all frozen. We had a deep freeze, and there was like different sections for different foods, and you just took it out and into the microwave. Luckily enough, it was a great microwave. It was in an industrial one. It was just to reheat. It wasn't a cook as they are nowadays, you know.
Okay.
But it was a big bar. It was about, what's that? About 4 foot by about 2.5 or so. You know?
Yeah, big thing,
massive,
and never got serviced, and years and years later, it used to overheat, and then you'd have to turn it off, let it cool down, and then put it back on again. So,
But it served its purpose anyway.
oh, it served its purpose. It certainly did. Yeah.
I suppose back in those days, so that would have been around the same time as the colour TV. Were they in circulation at the same time?
It was a bit later, I think.
Okay.
It was in around the same time. What I mean about a bit later could have been about 72, 3, 4. I'm not too sure.
A couple of years.
Yeah. So the novelty would have still been there as well, like a colour TV in a pub and then a microwave.
Yeah, but Match of the Day, we used to get people coming in for Match of the Day then as well. So it was godsend, to just
different times.
Hit the right thing at the right time,
Yeah.
And some of the memories then, Dennis, that you would have had, say, over the years, we've talked to a lot of people on the podcast about the old fair days. So you would have had, obviously, cattle outside the premises here, and they would have been all over on the Crescent and basically everywhere. Do you have any memories of the old fair days?
I do, yeah, and I can still see faces. I remember some dealers or calf dealers as well. And funny enough, there was 2 ladies and a gentleman in yesterday, and when they introduced themselves, I remember their dad very well. And when I come from school, I used to spend time with their dad, and he had calves, and he was so good and so nice to me. And then there was a neighbour of his in the next lorry, but there was a lot of people around the Crescent that time. They used to congregate at about 12 o'clock from the earlier fair on the green, and I think some of those cattle that weren't sold in the green were bought up here. But tricks in the trade, the cones from Outlets of Dre were legendary.
Really?
Oh, yeah, they were something else. And they, from my memory, they used to be more or less outside Grahams, but there's an awful lot of stories told, and they did huge business. There was a time there was 3 or 4 lorries going down to the south just collecting cattle to bring up to resell. But one story was where there's an ESB pole outside Grahams, and there's a cow tied to the pole, and there was a calf, So somebody came along and bought the calf, and off they went. And there was a Tarpey's Yard, which is just a short distance at the back here as well, you see. But there was another calf produced. And then someone else might buy that calf, you see. Oh, she's a great cow, look at the calf. And the calf would go on, and 5 minutes later there'd be another calf. So she was some cow that saw so many calves in the one day, But tricks of the trade. And I find farmers or people from agriculture, particularly the dealers or cattle dealers in the time, that they were thrifty, shrewd people, You'd be hard to get one over.
Yeah.
And there's so many, many stories. And the Cohens I'm very familiar with because they used to come in here, and Francie Cohen, name was known all over the country, and he was something else. And I gave him a lot of stuff, and it's just like Waterford Duck. He was a fantastic guy.
Really?
Yeah, lovely guy. For a bachelor man, he was wise to a lot of things. And
back then, Dennis, as well, there wouldn't have been any closing time. You would have been open 24/7 for the fair day, would you have? In the pub here?
I know we wouldn't have been, no. But pubs down the town would have been open earlier, And I know we would have, it would have been kind of normal hours. And then as the fair would finish up, the farmers would drift away, and cattle would drift away. And Paddy Conlon then used to come up, and there was a water hydrant to the far side of the street, and he kicked his water up, and he'd hose down whatever needed to be hosed down. And many a time, man would invite him in and give him a treat, Paddy was a character in his own way, but a lot of the older generation would be very familiar with Paddy in a sense. But
so those were the fair days, and also then kind of around the same, it would be the Flas. Do you remember? You remember the Flas? Was it 66? 66 was the last one, obviously.
Yeah, first one was 60.
Yeah.
The year I was born, and the next one was 66.
So you probably wouldn't remember much of
I don't.
No.
We have a lovely photograph of the Fla.
Yeah, out in the bar, yeah.
Yeah. Just quickly on that one, the comment that time that there were so many people around town that time that to get from one end of the town to the other, you were walking on somebody's head.
Yeah.
Tony Conboy always used to say that in school when he was teaching us.
Yeah.
He used to always remember that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Those people camped in gardens, front gardens, back gardens, wherever they could.
Unbelievable.
I
And
think the college field up there at the time was all
Packed.
tents. And
Love to have seen more photos of that era, though.
the photo you have there in the front bars is a great photo.
it is. It shows exactly what it was about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose, Dennis, because of your location and because of the history of the pub, you'd have a long-standing presence in the town. So some of the things, for Dodds would be known for is back when they used to have the dances in St. Joseph's Hall. Obviously, there was no alcohol being sold. So the men would come over here at half time for a few half ones. During bingo then, back in the day when bingo was hopping, a few of the older men and women used to come over at half time again, have a quick drink before going back. So talk to us a little bit, Dennis, about the people really that would come in and out during those events, the crack that you used to have.
Yeah, well, in the older days, the 70s,
Yeah.
80s, people came in before bingo for a drink or two.
Before,
half
so-
time, and
yeah.
then some of them might come back later. And, there was wonderful different varieties of characters of people. And there's one lady down from Liverstown, I didn't know, Flaherty, and I haven't seen her of recent years, but she used to come in pre-COVID for a couple of drinks before it, and she was wonderful fun. Fantastic character. And if the door opened, I'd run out to her and give Eileen a big hug. She's single, and she's 94 now, I think, and she's doing good anyway. But yeah, there was the bingo, people would be in a particular time and they'd have their usual drinks and that then. And going back to the dances then, they used to be on a Sunday night. And sometimes before the open up or set up, we used to get the management and his team might be for a couple of drinks. And then people that'd be going to the dance would be coming in, and some of them would be bachelors and some of them would be single ladies, and there was other couples and that. And some of them have gone on to marry each other since then, and others have drifted away and gone down a different road.
Yeah.
But it was fun again, and people respected each other, and the dances themselves were great, really, because it's very, the old-fashioned way of the women on the right hand side and trying to get a lady for the night. And there was many a night that I was, like a lot of people, that was disappointed, but sure, that's the way things were.
It all worked out in the end.
It worked out in the end, it did. I became experienced in that.
And another thing, Dennis, was the old court days. So today, obviously, the courthouse hasn't been used, but back in the day, it was a hive of activity on a Thursday, I think, was it? Wednesday. And a lot of the judges, solicitors, they used to come up here and have their cup of tea and sandwich on break as well, didn't they?
They would, but district court did nearly get the court over and could be finished at 12:30, 1:30. And some of them might congregate here and some of them didn't, and then you could have some of the legal end of it in the lounge, and you could have some of the
other
people that were in court could be in the bar,
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time, but there was never any problem in a sense, but people just kind of got on.
Because I think it's nice, I suppose today when we think of pubs, we just think of alcohol and music and the crack and, at night time, but back in the day, pub like this would have been used during the day, all day. People would have come in for their cup of tea and their chats and their sandwiches and their meetings or whatever, so I think that's nice.
Communions, yeah. Confirmations.
Well, going back to the 70s in particular, and I suppose even in the 80s, like when, you open at 10:30 and it wasn't too long and you got your first customer and it was quite busy, right till closing time. And there was times I remember where my mum, one or two family members and myself, maybe one or two people that we had employed at the time, and we were kept going for the whole day, it was just
long
unbelievable
hours,
time.
Long hours as well back in those days, I'd say, Dennis.
You'd be going upstairs. I used to run upstairs for my dinner and
Back
gobble it
down
up
again.
and run down again. It was that busy.
So it was the hub, really. It was the hub of the town.
Well, every pub was in a
Yeah.
sense, because they were all doing an extremely good business there. You know, it's
Yeah, I even remember when we were young, obviously, every pub in town. I know at one stage there was, I think, 26 or 28, and then obviously it dwindled down. But even when there was all them pubs, they were all busy. There was plenty of trade for every pub.
there was.
And I remember some Stevens's Day or Patrick's Day, especially, if you weren't sitting down in a pub by 12 o'clock that day, there'd be no point you going in. You wouldn't get a seat anywhere.
You wouldn't really know.
No.
You wouldn't get in the door.
That's it, yeah.
And Dennis, ye had the petrol pumps.
We had. It was kind of another idea. I think Dad, mainly, and Mum went along with it anyway. But like, there was no profit to be made in petrol or fuel that time.
But he got people in, I'd say.
It got people. It's a bit of a novelty in a sense, yeah. But it's
Wasn't as good as the old microwave for getting people in, was it?
it's not as many, I suppose. But it's like there's no.
There'd be no profit in it, really.
Very little.
Yeah.
Very little. I remember making it up there one time, and I think we were, per gallon at the time, I think we were making about 5 pence.
Oh.
So it was just a convenience, really, of having...
So then I kind of decommissioned it in a sense.
And what year were they taken away, Dennis?
No, that's a good
It
question.
wasn't an awfully long ago.
No, I remember seeing them as a young fella out there.
We
Definitely.
weren't selling fuel for
For
a long time. But I suppose it wouldn't be far off 20 years now when they were gone.
Yeah.
Since they were gone, you know.
I just remember seeing them, and I just thought I'd mention it because it was rare to see petrol pumps outside a pub in the middle of the town. So, again, your dad had his head screwed on, though, in terms of getting people in, because no more than the convenience stores today, like the garages and stuff, they don't make a whole pile, but it's to get people in and
really.
pick up the bits. And other days then, standout days, Dennis, in the town would have been around Christmas time. So the 8th of December was a big day.
Huge day.
Yeah.
Huge day. Like, it was a real family day, and kids so excited to go down to Taylor, see Santa, and back in another place was the old Landa shop, you know, it was another Santa as well, and it was a fantastic day.
And people had come in for the whole day back then.
Some would, yeah.
Morning till...
Some would, yeah.
Going shopping around them, yeah.
There was a lot of minerals and potatoes sold those days as
There
well.
was, I'd say. And a lot of whinging too.
Well, there was, but you got...
but there were happy memories, you know, for people.
There were.
You know, people that I suppose, even especially coming in from the country, to get into town and to be in and go to the likes of Dodd's and have their potatoes and their minerals, and then to see Santa come out with the little white bag.
Yeah.
You know, the white bag with the red writing. And sure, you'd be absolutely delighted with the little bits in it.
And there were, yeah.
We've lost that tradition, though, as you know, over the years. I think you don't have that as much.
No.
It's a shame, but you know, the whole...
Well, I think there's too much going on these days, you know, whereas back then you'd be waiting for weeks, you'd be waiting for months for this day, but now there's something going on all the time.
There is.
Yeah. But they were magical days. Yeah, and I remember Londis now more for me, for Santa, than Taylor's, yeah. And then, Dennis, I remember Dodd's was the place for the Sunday session for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at 4:00 on a Sunday, there'd be people above on the tables, and it was a great old crack. So that was how many years ago?
That's near enough 20 years ago.
I would say 20 years ago.
Near enough 20 years ago as well. Yeah, it's not far off it. I'd say it's definitely 18 or 19.
Yeah, the Sunday sessions.
Because I remember I was away, but I suppose I was only, 17 back then, but still going out, obviously. Don't say nothing, I wasn't drinking at 17. But I remember I was chatting to Sarah, and she was saying that they were all heading over to Dodd's, and at that stage then, everyone was up, there was music on. I think Rory was doing his rounds back then, and the place was wedged. They were good old days as well, Dennis.
They were, yeah. We just decided to get into the music and see how to get on, and it was wonderful days and nights and that, you know. But
and it was, I think, proved the thing of if you have it, people will turn up because, and it was packed, absolutely packed.
It was packed, yeah.
There was a stage as well where there was, a good few years ago, there used to be a big crowd in here on Tuesdays for some it took a kind of a stint at being very busy on a Tuesday in here. I just, for whatever reason, every Tuesday for a few weeks or a couple of months, I always remember hearing Dodd's on a Tuesday night was the place to be. Now, this would have been maybe 2010, 2013-ish, but I remember
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night in Dodd's, yeah. They used to take a stint there, so, yeah.
And just to go back, skip back a bit, Dennis, as well, to Christmas, I forgot to mention, I think it would have been a big night as well, would be Christmas Eve.
It was.
Where they had the midnight mass.
Yeah.
So people, I presume, would come into town early in the day, they do their last bit of shopping. They might come in here, have a drink or two, and then head off to mass at 12 o'clock.
Oh, a few stories there. I don't remember them now, or just one or two people that you bring me back there right now, and sure, yeah, they were kind of fairly tanked when they got to mass, all right, in a sense, and they were down at the back of the church, and there was maybe a bit of noise. But anyway, sure, look at you. That was the done thing that time, in a sense.
Yeah,
and
it was.
It was all part and parcel of it at a midnight mass, I suppose.
Yeah, it was midnight at the time, you see,
Yeah.
so it's kind of the way things flowed, and
But there was something magical about midnight mass, I think, back then. Did you get down to it, or would you have been cleaning up?
We would have been cleaning up. No, we always kind of went to the morning mass, but we
Christmas Day.
never got down to that, unfortunately. But it was magical, all right, I suppose, being dark and that, lights and candles and that.
Yeah. And I think that's it about Christmas. Did you want to mention anything else about Christmas?
There's nothing else I can remember, no, that touches on the Christmas side of things.
So just here on the Crescent, Dennis, over the years, there would have been a lot of interesting characters, good neighbours. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of those people that have meant a lot to you over the years?
Well, some of the customers, the one standout man for me that could tell a fantastic story was Pat Spellman from Elephant Street.
Mm.
And for those of you that don't know Pat Spellman, he originated from Case, and we used to call her Babs. Pat was 6'2" and Babs was about 5 foot, But Pat was a builder, and he served the fire brigade for a good few years with a lot of other men as well. But he had an astounding way of telling the story, and never smiled or anything, but he just perfected it without having any drama experience. He was an outstanding. There were so many more, like from the country. John Tom Conlon was such a character. Mickey Ward from Kingsland, so many stories about him. But the one most entertaining customer for me was Johnny O'Byrne from Knockrush, because he could sing, he could tell a fantastic story, he could dramatise it. A man with a great heart, in a sense. He and his wife adopted 3 kids and had no kids of their own, and fantastic guy. But always happy and cheerful and that. Could tell there's so many other characters, in a sense, from the other side of town. You could have, I mentioned Paddy Conlon. Of course, you had Roscoe.
Yes.
Roscoe. Just John.
Connolly?
No. Roscoe. People will be very familiar who I'm talking about. I just can't think of his surname offhand now, but
I would know that as well. He was a good character, Ross.
Oh, he's fantastic, and the wish of them with July 1-9ers, they were just something else, there's so many of them, and what I find about the pub game, people have this myth about you have to be in the pub to enjoy life, but there's a lot of people that never went to the pub. They still enjoy life, and there's great characters out there that never took a drink. And there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
And I suppose the fun in a sense is very similar but a bit different in a sense, but the principles are there at the same time, but there were so many characters. You could go from Gannon's Corner right down to
Applegreens.
I suppose Abbey and
A lot of them are natural.
You know, there's two that spring to mind. They used to meet up very often was Tommy Halton and Dominic Keaveney, you know, and publicans, Paddy Daly, Jerry Maris. A guy I always admired was Dermot Scanlon. I thought he was a fantastic guy. Lovely way about him. And in the old days, Matt Smith, Liz O'Dowd, Michael Martin, Andy Kerr. That was some pub, I'll tell you. I was in it maybe 2 or 3 times. I never experienced such an atmosphere in it. It was fantastic. Oh, from everybody. They were all seem to be mixed in.
Yeah.
Enjoying everything. There could be music and something else. But that, to me, that was a special pub.
The 3 counties.
Andy
Carr, sorry, that was before.
3 counties as well.
Yeah.
Because Mick Martin is a fantastic guy, you know. But you know, you had Wins, you had Mike Smiths, you had Litch's Hotel was, but there were so many other, you know, and ran good business and that, you know. It was, but there's a lot of stories gone that have been never recovered, and I have a couple of customers that are my own age and maybe a bit younger. They still retain a lot of stories that are kind of their teenage years, early adult life. And
it's important to remember them.
It is important, but there's so many of them gone.
And it's sad, Dennis, isn't it? Sad that they're gone.
You know, and if somebody got the initiative that time to kind of get some of the stories, wow, something else.
Didn't that John Riley next door, wouldn't he have been someone that was well known for kind of recording and passing on just I think more music and songs from the old days, as opposed to maybe stories?
Yeah, well, John was regarded as a traveller in a sense, and a single man, and he spent a lot of time in Graham next door. And see, for a guy, I'm told that couldn't read or write, and yet he passed on so many songs. Christy Moore is legendary that he got some of his songs through.
That's right.
Through John Riley, through the Grahams, and the Grahams and Christy Moore have remained friends since then, you know. So a guy passed on a lot of stuff. In fairness to him, he was fantastic. He died about 69, I think, from him. I don't think I ever met him. You know, but he would have been here 2 or 3 times as well.
Yeah.
Graham seemed to be his house, and another pub I've forgotten about across the road was the famous Kelly House Bar where the Morrises were.
Yeah,
you know, and
that's it.
they were similar age to our family and stuff. We know each other quite well, and they had some wonderful times as well.
Everyone has great memories of there, I think. You know, it always comes up in the podcast.
Was that where the trad music started, or was it Graham's beforehand, or did it kind of go there first?
Well, I'd say Graham's was more folky, and as long as with trad, but I think the trad house was really Morris's at the time, you know. Brendan Gleeson, who we're all familiar with, has been coming to town for the last 50 years, and he kind of was between the two, you know, and that's where he got his. He had a love for music that time, and it continued on, and he's been coming to town since, you know.
Yeah.
And himself and yourself are good friends, Dennis.
Oh, yeah, we know each other quite well. We never had a really sat down, had a personal conversation, but he comes in and he's one of the parts of the gang, and we have a bit of a chat, and there's a bit of fun, and he's a wonderful guy. He's sort of a guy you'd phone him up with, come on, we'll go for a pint, and he's a nice way about him, you know, and we kind of accept him as a Boyle man now, in a sense, you know,
more or less,
with all he's achieved, and
great for the town as well.
Amazing.
Great for the town.
Yeah. And it's nice for him, I suppose, to go back to a place that he's been coming to for so many years, since he was a young lad. I think he said he first came when he was 19 or, very young. And then to still come back and see the same people and probably still be accepted the same, considering the career he's had.
Oh, yeah, it hasn't for what he's become. He's still the same Brendan.
Yeah, unbelievable.
You know, and he's a big friendship there with Francis Gaffney. You know,
yes.
I suppose then with John Carty, but all those that played the trad music, I mean, it's and John Carty and I think France, certainly John has played in a couple of Brendan's films, and
I think wasn't Francis maybe his best man at his wedding or something, or did I hear that incorrectly?
Don't know.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
I'd have to.
I think I heard that. I could be wrong, but.
And I couldn't let this pass now without mentioning it. But he gave you a special mention for your birthday there a few years ago on prime time television.
Yeah, it was on the late.
Yeah.
I turned 60 there, and my wonderful wife and 4 girls organised. It was in lockdown, you see, so they got videos of people to send on their best wishes and that, and it was fantastic. And I can still remember being asked when I got up that morning, "Come on, you have to say something," and I got very emotional because,
of course,
there was a lot of people I hadn't seen for a long, long time, and there was cousins and family members. It was lovely the way it was put together.
Lovely gesture.
And thanks very much to the family. They were wonderful, and they've helped us out so much here. Like, I mean, when they were teenagers and that, and they've been brilliant. And it's nice to see that they're able to get on with people and that, and it was wonderful to see how they could react to customers and that, and they're well able to manage and run up in the sense now that they're adults, but they've been brilliant. My wife has been an exceptional woman. That she's big heart and always has a good head, and she's. She knows what's needed to be done and what needs, and she's a wonderful way of.
And she, like yourself, she's well able to handle everyone that walks through that door.
Well, in a sense, there's a way of doing it. But it's been wonderful. Only if, we wouldn't have got on, business wouldn't have got on so well only for them in a sense, and it was fantastic to have them. And now they're adults, mature adults in a sense that, they have their own life to live now, but they were brilliant. But Brendan did mention on the late, I someone mentioned that my phone was hopping with messages, because it's your birthday, but, it was nice. I mean, I think he'd been talking to Francis Gaffney earlier that day, and Francis and the track group have sent in their messages, you see, so it was kind of just fresh, you see, so.
It was a lovely thing to do.
Just the time was lovely, and it kind of made me a celebrity for a couple of days. Because people that I knew to see from around town, and when I was out in the street or doing a bit of shopping around town, whatever, there's your man, there's Jason's friend, and it was a nice touch, lovely
thing to do. And Dennis, you just touched there actually while you said it, you celebrated your birthday during COVID. So that COVID was a hard time for everybody, but particularly hard for publicans. You couldn't open your doors. There was a time then when you could let people in, but they had to be out the back. They couldn't come in and sit in the pub. Can you just talk to us quickly about what that was like for you? It was a hard time.
It's just strange.
Yeah.
God, it just hit all of a sudden. We knew there was a lockdown coming, but then when it came that first Monday morning, and we did come over to sort things out and see how things were and that sort of thing, a bit of cleaning up and just doing this and that and the other, but then as it progressed, like, it just unbelievably strange.
Very strange.
And I started doing a bit of walking that time, but John McGuinn, one of our lovely customers, John's dad and my dad were friendly going back in the day, And I said, "How do you find things, John?" He says, "Well, it's like the old days. It's like every day is a Good Friday."
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me, and I said, "God, you've hit the nail on the head there, John. That, I couldn't describe it, but just what he said, I just thought, because we used to go away on a Good Friday, but there was no one around. It was like as if everything was closed up, and it's just unreal, unbelievable, and Pubs, obviously, were closed and struggled, and you'd wonder, well, what's the future going to be? Because it was such a worrying time for people that had COVID, and unfortunately there were so many deaths with people that had COVID and other symptoms or whatever, and a lot of people were affected with it. And,
Yeah.
it's strange that people that passed away had to be buried alone and died alone, and it's hard. And luckily enough, we were one of those people that didn't have to experience that, but it's hard, and that's like
Extremely difficult.
But I suppose you kind of got used to it, and people were tuning in, well, what's the news and the COVID, and the 5 kilometre thing was the first time you couldn't get beyond 5 kilometres. I'm sure some people did. But it was nice for us in a sense, because it gave us a bit of family time at home. And I was helping more at the house and did a couple of dinners. And
Magella probably loved it.
well, in a sense, yeah, she did.
And were the girls home, Dennis? Did the girls?
They were at home.
Yeah.
We had a lassie in London at the time, so she couldn't make it, But well, they came home, but they couldn't come in, of course.
Yeah, I know.
And Sinead, poor old Sinead, she'd been a nurse time. She was frantic. She was so anxious and worried about things that, her being in the front line, in a sense, and it was very difficult. It was very challenging for her in particular now, and we just kind of said, look, whatever happens, we'll deal with it as it comes on and see we'll go from there, And it was very worrying, the future was so unpredictable.
Yeah.
It was nearly like as if a bomb hit the town. And
no one knew really when things would go back to the way they were. And it was a very lonely time, Dennis. I'd say a lot of people, your regulars that you would come in for a pint or two midweek or at the weekend, they all of a sudden had to stay at home, and you never know. For a lot of people, coming in for their pint or two was their social outing for the week. So it was a lonely time for a lot of people.
It was, yeah. People suffered big time with it, and I'm sure there's a lot of great stories out there that people kind of looked after other people in a sense,
Yeah, there was
watched out
good
for them,
as well,
and there was a lot of heroes and heroines, I'd say, in a sense, and they need to be commended that the thought of other people beside themselves, in a sense. And it was fantastic that they were that thought of mine, and people needed a lot of help. And then there was talking in the media about mental issues or whatever. And it seems I got over that in a sense, but it was
strange times.
Very strange time.
And I think COVID as well, no more than Boyle, but across the country as well, was the kind of death knell for not only pubs, but a lot of other businesses as well.
Other businesses, yeah.
They all just a lot of them didn't reopen the doors afterwards.
Yeah.
So that was a shame as well.
It was a shame, exactly. And you're after reminding me there of a lot of the bigger businesses in town, would say the likes of Feely's in a sense, and Camden's had a mill down there employing a lot of people. Stewart's had the mill that time, and I'd say they employed a lot more people than they employ at the moment, and the distillery might kick off another employment boom with them in a sense. And then there was the clothes factory there where Carty's Garage was. There was a lot of people, they were getting a daily wage, and you'd wonder, is this as many people getting a similar wage out of town nowadays than there was that back then? Because there were huge amounts of people. There was talks of 80 people here and 70 there and 90 and 100 there. And the town has suffered big time for a lot of reasons, and it's kind of coming back a bit.
It is.
Slowly, there's a bit of investment coming in, and give it time, and hopefully things will work out.
Yeah.
And then getting back to when the COVID was lifted and we could open our beer garden.
Yes.
And we took a decision, we'll open and see what happens. Oh, it was mad.
Yeah.
didn't envisage it was going to be as busy as it was. Like for the first 6-8 weeks that we reopened, it was crazy every day. And we took a decision that time. Well, we'll open at about 1 o'clock and take it from there. Anyway. But it was good, very hard work because my legs aren't as young as they used to be now. But I remember we opened on that June the 7th or 6th that day, and it was a Monday, bank holiday Monday. And waking up the next day, and I said to myself, every bone in my body was just. I said, I'm not going to stick this. And next morning it wasn't as bad, and the next morning after that it wasn't too bad. It was a bit better, so
you got used to it.
It kind of got used to it in a sense. But there again, my family and with a guy helped us out with the beer garden that set us up for us, and he was great, brilliant, and it just kind of worked.
And isn't it lovely now, Dennis, to have people back inside? Like we came up a couple of weeks ago for the Friday night trad session. And there was just an atmosphere of the older days.
Yeah.
Just great old crack.
That is.
Yeah. And Thursday nights as well, we'll give it a mention, the folk club. You do have the first Thursday of every month.
Yeah, we do the trad every second Friday, and they're in this Friday coming.
They're in this Friday.
And they're a great bunch of people, fantastic. Practically all locals. And then occasionally there's people that not from around, but you have the Morrises, the Gaffneys, the O'Connors, there's a few other players there as well, the Tivnans, and they're wonderful players, and there's a bit of fun, a bit of crack, and there's stories that happen in the night as well that people mention. And then thanks to Donny O'Connor and Conor Laura, they've set up this first Thursday Folk Club, and it's working out fantastic.
It's such a great thing, yeah.
Oh, it's been fantastic nights, musicians, singers. It's so entertaining. It's kind of a concert type where we can basically look after about 50 people, comfortably, but
brilliant.
And it's worked up a regular clientele, and people are enjoying it so much. It's just great.
And it's important as well because Boyle has historically a great musical Cayley trad history. So to have that back and incorporating it into, not daily life, but like going forward, it's great to have a venue like here that's going to have those sessions every month and every 2 weeks or whatever.
It is indeed, and there's so many brilliant artists, like when we're talking about music and singers and that, but then you have the musical once a year, and then the college put on the music. But there's so many, and there's one guy there's a lot of people, but one local guy I think that, has a bit of everything, is Bernie Flaherty.
Yeah.
And he can put things together with country and western, bit of jazz, or bit of blues, or pop even. And like when he's renowned, he's teaching different musical interests, and he's renowned for his traditional side, and he's a wonderful singing voice. I'm probably singing him out, but there's so many other great artists there as well. But Bernie's very special, and it's lovely the way he can chat to his fellow people in a sense there that are known him for years, and Bernie is a quality guy that won't let you down, just like Donny. They're just brilliant. There's so many brilliant people out there. So many. But it's wonderful to have the Thursday night, because they brought in artists from other areas, and exceptional talent there, wonderful. Like, I'm by no means wouldn't know one chord from the next, but God, what they can produce, it's just some of their own music and some of the music that we'd be very familiar with. Just fantastic, talented people.
So much talent. So that's a call for anyone that's interested to come in. They have their Facebook page. They can follow that and see which nights they're in. So that's really all I have everything ticked off my list here. So anything else, Carla, or will we hand it over to Dennis and give the mic to Dennis? And is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about, Dennis?
Not really in a sense, but we've been so lucky to have so many different community groups that are all voluntary, and give so much goodness to the town and surrounding area and that. And we're very fortunate to have the Lockheed Forest Park on our doorstep, in a sense. It brings a lot of people in, and the canal, and whatever the future of the town is going to be, I don't know in a sense, but I think it's hopefully be positive. There's people out there that will bring the town further and bring it in the right direction in a sense, and I think the future is bright in a sense. It's it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I suppose with high-tech companies now and that sort of thing, and it's a different ballgame than when I was starting out in school and secondary school, but that's where things you kind of go with the changes and see what happens. But it's been more wonderful to have known so many wonderful people, and that their heart was always in the right place, and there was a bit of fun going along with suited us very good, very fine. We were thrilled to be part of it.
Yeah.
And long may it continue for another while.
Exactly.
And let's hope Dodds is a part of Boyle's history for many, many years to come. Yeah. And there's lots of happy memories within these walls, Dennis, for people from town.
They have. And so have we. And we'll continue as long as we can. And we'll be here and see what happens. And we'll see what happens in the next generation or whatever goes on and that. And we have decisions to make in the future, whatever that'll be. And so have other people. But we enjoy people's company in a sense. And the one thing I find that we do quite well, we kind of respect people's opinions, even though we might be in disagreement with them on different issues. But customer is always right.
Especially come 1 o'clock in the morning.
But I know people are kind of, I don't think they're as demanding now as they used to be. Like one time that's, no matter what night of the week, they'd be looking to stay on after close and that. But nowadays, I'd often close the doors 11 o'clock, and if there's someone around, they can be looking, well, I'm not going to stay on, you can go home. And they're kind of respectful in that sense. And it's kind of unfortunate the way the pub trade has gone, in a sense. And Boyle is similar to a lot of other towns that I've heard about, and it's not that I've done any research as such about it, but it's very similar to the way things have gone, even though we have more pubs open than other towns, look in that sense. But it's going to be challenging times the next 4 or 5 years in particular and beyond. But there'll always be a few pubs knocking around, and
there will.
If we're one of them, we'd be delighted to be here.
And the town will be delighted to have you. The good ones will last, as they say. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Well, I suppose we'll wrap it up at that. There could be somebody waiting outside to get in. As I said, we are in the back lounge. So we could be stopping people from coming in. So Dennis, we just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us on the Voices of Boyle. And we look forward to many more happy memories of Dodds in Boyle.
Thanks very much, Dennis.
Well, thanks yourselves, and it was a delight and a privilege to be, and that old song, the town I love so well, it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Boyle is your town, Dennis.
Boyle is my town, yeah.